Hello, Laura J. and Michael Seegers here for the Michael and Laura Show, where today we will be continuing on in the beginners class, introducing you to the teachings of the Ascended Masters through Michael Seegers, who has been studying their work for more than 40 years and also sharing it with other chelas as well. So Michael is going to today introduce the causal body and the seven rays. So please take it away.
Thank you, Laura. We will start with the seven rays, the seven chakras there. So on the left, we've got what we call the image of the chakra man. So showing the seven chakras, the base, white, up to the crown, which is yellow. And those are the colors that the chakras are intended to be. It's not the way they look in people generally, but when they are perfected, purified, that is what they're going to look like. So you see seven rays, seven colors expressing through seven chakras. And on the right, you see the causal body. And so I'm not showing you the whole chart of the divine self because we're just focusing on the top part of the chart. The I am presence right here in the center. And then you see the spheres of light surrounding the I am presence. And this is the yellow ray, the ray of wisdom. It's called the second ray. It corresponds to the crown chakra. And then you see around that the pink ray, which is the third ray, which corresponds to the heart chakra. And then we have purple. This would be actually the violet ray, corresponding to the seat of the soul chakra. Then we have the purple, which is actually purple and gold with ruby flecks in it, which corresponds to the solar plexus chakra. Then we've got the emerald ray, which is the third eye chakra. And then we've got the blue ray corresponding to the throat chakra. The causal body is the storehouse of energy, and it contains all the perfected energies of every thought, word, and deed that has ever been expressed throughout all of your lifetimes. The science of the causal body is worthy of a PhD study, and you would not even accomplish a complete understanding of it in one lifetime. And we're just going to touch on it very, very briefly. Because the soul actually journeys through the causal body on its way into the planes of matter. And that is a humongous task, and it's really in the advanced studies. We're just going to look at what it is in relation to the evolving soul on the planes of matter as the storehouse of energy. It does also contain the original endowment that God gave the soul when the soul was first created, so that all the resources that would ever be needed for the journey throughout all the lifetimes of matter are contained in the causal body. And through the science of alchemy and learning how to accomplish precipitation, you can draw forth from those supplies in the causal body all that you require. Energy that is expressed through the individual, through the lower self. We talked about the chart of the I am presence. We talked about the light coming down into the heart chakra and how that light expresses through the three rays, the primary rays, which are expressed in the threefold flame, the blue, yellow, and pink, first, second, and third rays, and how that energy then further differentiates into the frequencies that express through all seven of the chakras. And that energy is going out into the world of form for blessing or for bane, depending on, are you expressing wonderful things, or are you perverting that energy? Are you misqualifying that energy with a negative taint? And the energy that you send out that is expressing virtue goes out into the world, magnetizes more of similar vibration, and is returned to you, and that is what's stored in the causal body. The energy that you misqualify with negative expressions goes out into the world of form, magnetically attracts more of similar vibration, and returns to you amplified multiplied, and is stored in what is known as the electronic belt, which will be the subject of our next video. So, after looking at the causal body, we're going to look at the 7 rays and the idea of the lords of the rays. That's the cover of a book, Lords of the 7 Rays. And in the chart on the right, we see a breakdown of the 7 rays. So if we start in the right-hand column here, we see the first ray, the ray of God's power, will, faith, protection, direction, courage, obedience, and leadership. All the qualities, and perhaps not all of them, but the majority of the qualities that we would recognize as expressions of that ray energy. That energy is expressing through the throat chakra. We also see the negative traits. We can touch upon those when we do the electronic belt. And we see the Lord of the ray here is El Moria. And so that all the activity of that first ray in our world is really under the guidance, direction of the master, whose name is El Moria. And the way it's described is he actually ensouls the ray. The ray comes to him, it comes through him, and expresses across the entire planet. So he embodies everything of that first ray of the will of God. We then,
the will of
pardon me?
mastery. He embodies the ray of mastery, it seems. By the definition, it seems that when in the positive aspect of the first ray, we are in a sacred mastery, whereas in the negative aspect, we're in a scared portrayal.
Well, if you look at negative traits, you see control, doubt, condemnation, gossip, human willfulness, idle chatter, and cowardice.
Exactly. It's the scared versus sacred aspect of the rays.
And so coming through the Lord of the Ray will always be only the positive qualities.
And when in the negative aspect, then what is it coming through?
Well, these are the descriptions of what humans do when they misqualify the energy. When we look at this second ray here, the ray of wisdom, it's the yellow ray. It's shown here as the top of the head, is the crown chakra. The Lord of that ray is Lord Lanto, and we see the qualities of the ray as wisdom, illumination, self-knowledge, humility, understanding, open-mindedness. And then we see the perversion of those qualities as intellectual and spiritual pride, vanity, ignorance, intellectualism, and ego-centeredness. And so that's different from the misqualification of the first ray. Each ray has its distinct qualities and virtues and its very distinct perversions of those qualities. Looking down at the heart chakra, we see the third ray, which is pink. We also see a column here called petals, and it's describing the number 16 for the first ray, 972 for the crown, which is often called the 1,000-petal lotus, 12 for the heart. They're describing the actual anatomical structure of the ray, of the chakra, which opens up like a flower and has petals like a flower. Our third ray Lord is known as Paul the Venetian. Third ray qualities: love, compassion, beauty, creativity, selflessness, comfort, generosity, and charity. And we see the negative traits: hatred, dislike, selfishness, self-pity, negligence, human sympathy. At the base of the spine, we have the fourth ray. It's the ray of purity. It's a 4-petaled chakra. The Lord of that ray is Serapis Bey. He is the hierarch of the Ascension Temple at Luxor, Egypt. He is the great initiator. This is a ray of purity, hope, joy, self-discipline, perfection, integration, wholeness, and nurturing. And we see the negative traits there as discouragement, hopelessness, impurity, and chaos. The fifth ray, 96 petals, expressing through the third eye chakra in the center of the forehead. The master on that ray, the lord of the ray, is Hilarion. And the qualities we see there as truth, vision, healing, holding the highest vision for self and others, music, science, and abundance. And the negative traits that can be expressed are falsehood, lack of vision, mental criticism, spiritual impoverishment, lack of clarity, and inconstancy. The solar plexus chakra, which is where you would expect it, navel and stomach, it's a 10-petaled chakra. That's the one that was purple and gold with flecks of ruby. The lord of that ray is an ascended lady master. Her name is Nada. The qualities of this ray are peace, balance, brotherhood, selfless service, right desire, and harmlessness. The negative traits of this ray are anger, agitation, fanaticism, fear, aggression, egoism, anxiety, passivity, and overindulgence. And the seventh ray, the violet ray, expressing through the seat of the soul chakra, which has 6 petals. The lord of that ray is our beloved Ascended Master Saint Germain. We see the qualities of this ray as being freedom, mercy, forgiveness, justice, alchemy, intuition, transcendence, diplomacy, prophecy, transmutation. And negative traits can be expressed as lack of justice, that would also be lack of forgiveness, or lack of mercy, lack of tact, intolerance, cruelty, disregard for others. These are the 7 rays that express through the 7 chakras. They come to us through the lords of the rays who receive them from the higher plane up, which is the plane of the archangels. And we find that there is an archangel on each of the rays. And the archangels receive the rays from a plane higher up, which is the plane of the Elohim. And we have 7 Elohim bringing those rays to us. And they originate in the great central sun. That's a quick summary. We're going to go now into what most people believe are the 7 rays, and they're completely wrong about it.
You were speaking about correct hierarchy within the natural order of things with the archangels and then the Elohim and then above and above back to the central sun. So whether that's a conversation for now or whether that's a conversation for in future, that is a very important concept to understand when someone says something is wrong and offers no context, when you have an understanding of the natural structure of things too.
So that'll be a complete video production that we do on spiritual hierarchy. So that'll be a whole separate section. Probably spend 20 minutes on that.
Perfect.
If you go to Google or anywhere on the internet, Facebook, yoga groups, and just look for a chart of the 7 chakras, you're going to find this every time. They're going to show you the base chakra as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, with violet at the top. This is completely arbitrary. It's completely wrong. I don't know where that began. The names are correct. These are the Sanskrit names: Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Pura, Anahata, Visuddha, Ajna, and Sahasrara. That's correct. They've got the correct number of petals, but the colors are completely wrong. And I'm going to show you where I believe that came from. Now you can see the video.
When a beam of light hits a piece of glass straight on, it passes right through it. But the waves that make up the light actually get slowed down by the glass and only go back to their normal speed when they come out the other side. That slowing down is what causes white light to split into a rainbow of colour whenever it hits glass on an angle. It happens because glass slows some colours of light more than others, and because slowing down on an angle makes light bend. It's easy to understand the bending if you picture how the light waves would look from above. like how waves at the beach look if you see them from the air. And while white light's made up of all the different colours of light, it also helps to look at them one colour at a time. When a wave front of red light hits glass on an angle, the part of the wave that enters the glass first gets slowed down before the rest, and that changes the angle of the whole wave, like how waves bend around a cliff. Violet light gets slowed down even more by glass, so its waves bend more. All the other colours get bent somewhere in between. So the colours get separated when they first enter the glass on an angle, and they spread out even more when they speed up on an angle as they leave. The reason the different colours slow down different amounts in glass is because they've got different wavelengths. Red light has the longest wavelength, followed by orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and finally violet with the shortest wavelength. And the shorter the wavelength, the longer it takes to travel through glass. That's because light interacts with electrons in the molecules that make up glass. Long wavelength light, like red, only interacts a bit with the electrons, so it doesn't get slowed much. But shorter wavelength violet light interacts more, so it gets slowed down more. So it's the combination of hitting glass on an angle and different wavelengths interacting with the electrons in the glass different amounts that makes light hitting a prism spread out into a beautiful spectrum of colour and some classic album cover art.
So there we see the physics of light, and we see that the components of light are these 7 major frequencies, and we also learn that the frequencies in the different color bands are traveling at different speeds. And you notice that she said that the violet light is moving faster, so it has greater interaction with the electrons of the substance. And it's absolutely true of spiritual light in the same way. The different frequencies are traveling at different speeds, and the violet is traveling at a faster frequency and having a more powerful interaction at the molecular level. And we discussed that when we talked about the violet flame, how it is able to transmute by its interaction with the molecules. And so when you see that that rainbow is just a standard rainbow that we learned in physics and we've known for a few hundred years, that's been superimposed upon the yoga posters of the chakra images in the exact same sequence. And I think it's very arbitrary, and it was done by probably well-intentioned people who just didn't know the truth. Most people's chakras are filled with misqualified substance and will have all kinds of really unattractive colors in them. And when we do our studies of the aura, we're going to show you pictures of auras that were drawn by Saint Germain that really bring to light the reality of this. And it's very, very different. So we want to get that understanding out there that all those red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet prism colors in the chakra diagrams are completely wrong. The color scheme the masters present to us is the color scheme that we want to achieve. It's the color scheme of the perfected, purified chakras. And it's not what we have in our current state. We're going to go into the spheres of the causal body very briefly. And this is just describing, as we showed initially, the color bands, the white fired core at the heart of the I Am Presence, which is the 4th ray of purity. Then between the white fired core and the beginning of the yellow sphere, we see here 1st secret ray, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th secret ray. The 5 bands of the secret rays are nested between the white fired core and the yellow band of illumination of wisdom. And the secret rays will be involved in initiations that the students go through much farther down the path. We have secret ray chakras that are in the palms of the hands, the instep of the feet, and the spleen. So the 5 points on the cross where Jesus was pierced when he was nailed to the cross and a spear was punctured his spleen was actually what the masters call a bloodletting ritual of the dark forces intended to steal the light by piercing the chakras of the 5 secret rays. We will, in years to come, go greater in depth in the secret rays, the secret ray chakras, the secret ray initiations. They're certainly more advanced material, but we just want to bring the awareness that they are positioned in the causal body between the white far core and the yellow band. And then we see the third band, which is the pink ray, followed by the violet, purple and gold, green, and blue ray. And the blue ray is the divine blueprint, it's power and protection, and appropriately, it's the outside ray. It's protecting the causal body from anything that would want to interfere with it. This was a couple of minutes ago. I wanted to show you this. You've seen the movie now. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. The spectrum of light and not the spectrum of the chakras. And now that that's out of the way, probably it'll open what I'm looking for here. 8 religions, 8 rays, 8 chakras. This is a very, very interesting concept. And this is absolutely the truth taught by the masters. Starting at the top, Judaism facilitates your soul development on the first ray of God's power through the throat chakra. The religion of Judaism is brought forth as an expression of the blue ray. And therefore, all the concepts within Judaism are pretty much limited to what the blue ray is capable of expressing. Buddhism facilitates your soul development on the second ray of God's wisdom through the crown chakra. And that's why Buddhism is so very different from Judaism. Christianity facilitates your soul development on the third ray of God's love through the heart chakra. Hinduism facilitates your soul development on the fourth ray of God's purity through the basal divine chakra. Confucianism facilitates your soul development on the fifth ray of science, healing, and truth through the third eye chakra. Islam facilitates your soul development on the sixth ray of ministration and service through the solar plexus chakra. Taoism facilitates your soul development on the seventh ray of God's freedom through the seat of the soul chakra. And Zoroastrianism facilitates your soul development on the eighth ray through the secret chamber of the heart. Now, we've been talking about 7 rays, but we also talked about the secret chamber of the heart, where the threefold flame is anchored as being in a cosmic interval, which is a completely separate dimension that cannot be touched by anything anywhere. And it is where the eighth ray, the ray of integration, is focused. And that eighth ray expresses through the Zoroastrianism religion. And here we get to see that all the world's religions were brought forth as expressions of the rays by different masters at different times in different cultures to produce a complete expression of the white light throughout all of humanity. And once you start to understand this idea, you truly cannot say that any religion is right or any religion is wrong. They all have a piece of it. And you have to really study all the world's religions to get the whole of it. And when you study the teachings of the Ascended Masters, you get the whole of it. They leave nothing out. No stone unturned, no question unanswered. You cannot bring a question that the Masters cannot answer. And the answers that they bring are perfect for every culture, for every time in civilization, as relevant 10,000 years ago as today. That, in a nutshell, is the 7 rays, 7 chakras, and the causal body.
Do you understand how excited I am? That was so brilliant, Michael. And I want to just say that last year, when I went through my enlightenment, where I had taken too much plant medicine and not integrated it to know what I knew or had discovered, and was involved with false hierarchies that I didn't quite understand where the mistruth was, but I knew there was good stuff there. And I was trying to put together my own work in writing the book about transforming your self-image through the hero's journey from a soulful perspective. for 3.5 years. And all of that made it so that when I understood, I didn't know how to bring it all together, but knew that that was what was meant to happen. It seemed to the outside world that I was going crazy because I was saying I'm here to be an ambassador for peace. And then you're bringing this information out. And at the time, I was saying, we need to just bring the best of all of it together and put it on the table and then figure out where it all fits together. And it's just like, it's already here. We're here. It's the masters have brought forward the information. We're the players that are sharing that information and applying it to our own lives to master ourselves so that we can actually unite and do what we came here for. And it's just like, this is such an important key for what I was trying to do then, but didn't know how to do, because our plan and the divine plan have very different timelines.
It's no different from what I went through when I was 16 years old, and I had my experience, and I didn't have a context in which to understand it, and trying to explain to other people, especially in the medical community, thinking that I was hallucinating, and the language I was using to express the concepts didn't make any sense. And then I went on my journey to find the masters because I knew they existed. And then here we are 40 years later, when I actually understand it a little bit, I'm able to speak about it intelligently so other people can understand it. And there is nothing unavailable through the masters. They will present everything that you require on your journey, and they will reveal to you at the most perfect time the very thing that you need, often when you least expect it. They are absolutely magical in that regard. Their wisdom is infinite. They have access to the mind of God. They're absolutely without limit in what they can do. And all we have to do is engage, just start the journey and begin to open up to the teachings. It's all there.
It truly is. And this morning, before this message, I came across the message you had sent from Leto about the call for students and Sheilas of the light to come together because the world needs it now. And it's just like, this is your call. So if you've come across this message today and been intrigued by the insights that Michael has shared, because he devoted 40 years of his life to gain access to the tools that now he can share and make it fit into a puzzle that when we're trying to do it on our own, it takes too much time for what we have. Right now, we're at the turning point in humanity's history where we get to choose whether we're going to continue to walk away from the great central sun or whether we're going to turn around and face our karma and walk through it back to the source from which we all came from and will all return to, and can do so more confidently when we actually have insights as to what to expect.
And we do everything we can to make this information logical and progressive so that we start you at the most basic concepts and just walk you through it, baby steps, a little bit at a time, so it will all make sense.
Trusted guides are required. Mentorship matters. We all know it, but finding mentors that have our hearts in mind when they're preparing the material that will help you go into the sacred chamber of your own heart to reconnect with the threefold flame that is there, that's tied to the I am that I am presence above us, like a picture of God that came to remind each of us we're never alone.
Truly, we are never alone. Remember in the presentation that Wayne Dyer gave, he said, if you knew who walked with you, you would never doubt.
That's the story that this is my final submission for this episode. And Michael, I'd love for you to share the final word. And basically, there's a story about how there was a very faithful man that died. And at the pearly gates of heaven, that the story is told to have, he meets God, and they're reflecting on his life, and basically he sees points in the sand where there, instead of just 2 footsteps, there are normally 4, but in the very most hardest parts, there are only just 2. And he says, I can't believe you would abandon me at my darkest hour. And God says, no, my son, it is at those times I carried you.
Footprints is the name of that piece. You can buy that on posters, that little story.
It's beautiful. And
it is beautiful.
Right now, this is what we're doing in your hearts, as the masters have done in ours. And Michael Seegers, what are the final words for today's episode?
God bless you all.
Amen.
Next up is electronic belt.
Yes, love is a fruit in season at all times. And knowing who you are just helps you love yourself more. And when you can love yourself, you can love us and everyone else. And the world is a whole lot more peaceful when we're at peace with ourselves. So, Michael Seegers, thank you for everything.
You're very welcome.